just because other companies are doing it doesn't mean you have the resource, the skills, the capability, and the ecosystem in place. Yeah, and the stats are out there, Harjit. You know, a lot of them do fail, and a lot of them fail due to, again, not aligning to organizational strategy. If it's not aligned to strategy, then there's no direction, and it's essentially having, you know, a supercar, but no destination, and eventually it's going to run out of fuel. Yeah, because it allows you to proactively respond rather than being reactive. And for me, that's the key thing, Harjit, is AI has allowed us to become more proactive and more personalized, as opposed to the systems of the past, which were essentially static and reactive.
If anybody that's listening wants to get more involved with AI, what are the one or two things they can start doing tomorrow to progress their journey?
So first of all, I would suggest is
welcome to another episode of Driving Productivity with Harjit Chana. I'm really pleased to have a fantastic guest with me today, Dr Kamran Mahroof from the University of Bradford. Kamran, I'm really pleased you've had time to meet with me today. We're going to talk about AI, and both AI being a force for good, but also the pitfalls and challenges for small businesses. But before we get into that, credentials.
Thank you, Harji. And first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. In fact, I've seen a few of your episodes, so really pleased to be being able to make the time to be here. And hello to the viewers. Credentials, formerly an academic, as you know, an associate professor in supply chain analytics at the University of Bradford. Did my PhD now, perhaps almost coming on to close to a decade ago, in disruptive technologies. And in healthcare, predominantly, but really looking at the role of technology in overcoming organizational challenges and power dynamics. I come from industry, so I'm pleased to say one of Bradford's very own, Morrison's, and I worked there whilst doing my PhD as well, so I kind of built up, I would say, quite a bit of my research interest whilst being in the sector. So that's kind of a succinct overview of where we are.
And full disclosure, you were my tutor when I did my MBA.
That's the one.
On supply chain and circular economy as well.
That was the one. Yeah. So the jury's out. You can let the viewers know on how well it didn't go.
It went really well.
Fantastic.
It went really well. I think everybody in Bradford's worked at Morrison's, haven't they?
Yeah, there's a connection, isn't there? There's that connection. Yeah, in some capacity.
So. What about you? What do you do outside of university life?
So Harji, I'm a proud father of two. My eldest has just turned 8, youngest has turned 4, which is kind of really making me think, gosh, where's the time going? And my interests predominantly are, I like to play cricket when I get the odd opportunity. I'm into my fitness. Well, at least I try to keep healthy. I know it's an interesting one because, whilst being in, I love academia and I wouldn't change it for the world. But quite quickly, you could realise that your hours of the day are getting eaten away. And more recently, I've kind of tried to redress that balance a little bit. I'm kind of also trying to focus on myself. Health is everything, right? So that's pretty much it. Enjoy spending time with friends and family. Do sports here and there, and just your normal guy from Yorkshire.
Yeah, you've been doing a bit of keto as well, haven't you?
Well, I have. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Harji. So I mean, I've always been into fitness. I've been weightlifting for a very long time, and then since work kind of took over, and not just work, family life, having children and having a family, and then trying to juggle everything, and the first thing that slips down the pecking order is yourself and gym and fitness. So last year I took a conscious decision to kind of lose some of that weight that I put on. I wouldn't say it was too much weight. And it was by chance, actually, Harjit. I never consciously went out to do keto. I just did a bit of research, understood the impact of carbs, excessive carbs. And you could have carbs, and carbs is a great thing if you're training or you're burning it off.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly sat behind the computer and you're not really, movement is medicine. So if you're not moving, the carbs have got nowhere to go. And for me, it was a revelation, Haji. I would say I lost in the excess of 20 kgs in a matter of months. And it was it was quite a good plan for me. That worked really well.
I did keto for a little while, and life was like 4K, but the viewers probably want to talk about AI or hear about AI.
I was going to say, otherwise we could go on the whole podcast here on keto.
So AI is interesting. I was involved with automation and RPA and machine learning over a decade ago. Now we're talking about agentic AI. There's the consultants McKinsey & Co. Have suggested that 88% of organisations are trying AI at least in one of their functions, but a large proportion, over a third, are struggling to scale. And most organisations are still in test and learn. On the flip side, Stanford have done a report on AI investment, and they believe that over $500 billion is being invested in AI. It's phenomenal. It's happening. If you're not doing AI, if you're not involved in AI and you run a small business, then this is for you. And look, you're the expert here, so I'm going to hand over to you. I guess there's a few things that people would be interested in to hear about. One is, what is it? The other is, how can they start? You've got lots of practical experience, I know, in different applications as well, such as safety, in financial services as well, around affordability. And interestingly, over a quarter of UK households don't have sufficient savings to manage impact of an unexpected cost. I think 10% of the population don't have more than £1,000 saved, which is quite a challenging subject. And if AI can help with that, that's fantastic. And then you've done some application in sports as well.
Yeah, Haji. We kind of jump into some of those projects where the inspiration for those came from, and sort of all the aspects associated with that. But I think for the viewers, you've pretty much set the scene quite well. AI is here; it's here to stay. And the question really for organisations is, what are you doing to first of all, leverage AI, but secondly to attract the right talent pool to ensure that you are making most of AI tools. The problem we have, and I'd kind of frame it as a problem with a small p. Not a capital P, is, AI is being used, but quite disparately across organizations. Different people in the organizations may be using different tools. And there's no, there's no necessarily, I would say, alignment or strategy. And for me, coming from a business school, it's always strategy over technology. You've got to first of all understand, why do we want to use AI? What problems are we looking to solve, or what things are we trying to do better? Once you've gone past that stage, you then want to start understanding the data you have, because AI is only as good as the data you have. And I'm sure everyone knows what AI is, but in the simplest terms, it's the ability for machines to recognize patterns and kind of pretty much mimic, human intelligence, by, either automating tasks or giving some predictive insights and so on and so forth. So for me, Harjit, the first thing really is understanding data quality, and what data funnels do you have? Are you collecting data? Are you collecting different forms of data? And the more data you have, the more possibilities you have with AI.
And is there a question of quality of data as well?
Absolutely. Quality is paramount, and we've all heard the term of garbage in, garbage out, and AI is no different to that. It just is. It's data hungry. And it will use the data you have, and it will extrapolate patterns from the data you give it. If that data is not correct, then that's down to the organization. And this is why it's really important to understand where your data is coming from, and whether you have, the speed in which the data is coming. Is it outdated? Do you have different varieties of data? And all of these things essentially, combine. And I often give an example to my MBA students of a Rubik's Cube. And in the fact that the more colors you add on, the more complex it becomes, but more combinations you can actually do. And for me, data and AI is no different to that. It's only as good as the data you have.
And then you've got your data. You've got to know what you're fixing as well.
Yes.
And then what about workflow? Is that the next question that you think about?
Harjit, absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the processes that and I do a little bit of consultancy, as an academic. It's one of the things that we do, and we enjoy doing, because we're actually putting things in practice. We're researching, and we're also then being able to practically apply that. And for me, even before the workflows, so first, what's the goal? And I follow OKR, objectives, key results. And for me, it's first of all understanding how are we all aligning to the organization's goals, objectives, how is each department contributing towards that, and then what data does each department actually capture? Is it structured? Do we find that in a numeric form? Is it unstructured? And then seeing where the workflows actually align, and seeing which departments are more closely related and compatible, which departments maybe don't talk to one another, and that's where you find opportunities to do data sharing. And often I've spoken to many organizations, and they often argue, we don't have enough data in this department. But often what I argue is, the data you're producing either is becoming input for another department, or your inputs are coming from other departments as well. So understanding workflow is very important, and where everything connects together.
And if you're a low data maturity organisation, what can you do? Can you collect data manually and then make it structured? Or is that sort of pointless? Again, it all depends on the type of organisation you are and the type of data you collect. But for me, there shouldn't be an obsession to use AI if the data streams are not there. You could use AI in many capacities. It could be task specific. So for example, prompting an AI application to give you some advice on a particular work stream, etc. So at this very basic level, so for me, there doesn't need to be an obsession of using AI if the data doesn't reflect it, and that's what I find. And the academic term, I'm sorry to throw the academic terms in, isomorphism. For me, it's just because other companies are doing it doesn't mean you have the resource, the skills, the capability, and the ecosystem in place to be successful. And let's be honest here, a lot of AI projects do fail.
And the stats are out there, Harjit. A lot of them do fail, and a lot of them fail due to, again, not aligning to organizational strategy. If it's not aligned to strategy, then there's no direction, and it's essentially having a supercar but no destination, and eventually it's going to run out of fuel.
Bit of a fool's errand, isn't it?
Well, that's it. So, and there are, again, organisations that are willing to invest. The first question I often ask is, why do you want to invest in AI? And often they don't really necessarily give you a clear-cut answer. So, and it's a good thing, by the way. I'm not saying don't invest in AI, but what's the vision? And is it aligned to what you're trying to achieve as an organization? Are you trying to drive efficiencies? It's not just to overcome problems, but it's also to make existing processes work even better. But again, data is king, and often organizations, overlook that and don't focus on that aspect of it.
So we've got a strategy. So we know what we're trying to fix. We know what we're doing. We've talked about the data requirement. We've talked about workflow. Where does the human judgment come into this?
That's a great question, and in fact, my focus in most of my research is the collaboration between the tech and the people. Data is only as good as the people who actually are processing it, developing it, and training the models. So for me, it's human judgment is paramount. We set the parameters. And our focus should again be on ensuring that whatever we're doing from an AI perspective, it aligns to the overall organization's objectives and goals. And you can't do that without having the human input. Let me frame it another way. One example I give is, we had a keynote recently, and I was one of the panelists. And the point I was trying to make was, a person who has domain specialism, it might be supply chain, it might be marketing, it might be operations management. That person's more valuable to an organization when he or she learns AI, because they are contextualizing the use of AI, and they know for what purposes they may want to use that.
Okay.
When you're using AI and it's void of human judgment, it's void of context. And that's where often we find one size doesn't fit all. So your models or what your AI might be insinuating may not fit the purpose for your organization, be it size, scope, and so on and so forth.
So there's a need for education.
Awareness and education, most definitely, and I think that's essentially where you hear many of the World Economic Forum not so long ago spoke about the need for managers to upskill or reskill in this field for that particular reason, and it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be a super techie. Or, we deliver at the University of Bradford School of Management, we deliver courses, where we teach you AI, but you don't need an AI background.
Yeah.
And it's about the collaboration between understanding the hard STEM aspect, the science, the technology, engineering aspects, but equally the non-technical side.
And are you teaching this to industry? Or are you teaching schools as well?
Yeah, so industry, on the MBA we have, future leaders and already people who are already pioneering in their own rights. We do a lot of outreach with schools and sixth forms and colleges where we are trying to introduce that way of thinking of it's not one or the other. It's not that the data is completely going to take over. It's about understanding how that is going to be beneficial for your own skill sets and your own development.
Absolutely, and for small businesses, I think it's critical. Even for micro businesses, AI is a game.
It's a lifeline. It's a lifeline, Harjit, because it really allows you to punch above your weight. If you are aligning it with what you're trying to achieve as an organization, then you're able to compete. And in today's day and age, most organizations, if you look at it from a business perspective, one, you want to make sure your operations are running smoothly, but secondly, it's about getting your products and your services out there. And there are so many applications now that allow organizations, even small or micro businesses, to do that real targeted segmentation through data. And this is why I really encourage organizations to be visible on whatever platforms you are on, but be visible and also interact with your customers, because the more data you're able to collect, the more you get to realize what people think about your organization.
Okay, and then I guess the final piece of the jigsaw is measurement.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you measure the impact? And it's interesting you've said that, because all of these things could be KPI related, but does it lead to actual impact?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things, one of the projects you mentioned earlier. So we, the university, and I'm involved in one of the projects, which is called 6G Versus, or Vertical for Sustainability. And we're using 6G and AI technology across different verticals, in healthcare. We'll be focusing on wildfires and detecting early onset of wildfires. But the focus is on measurement, and not just measuring KPIs. or technical performance, but actual impact for the end users.
Okay.
Is it actually being implemented?
So back to what you said earlier, around patterns. It's understanding patterns.
Yeah.
And trigger points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then being able to preempt that. So in the case of the wildfires, it's being able to identify areas that are more likely to get wildfire based on historic data. But again, if we didn't have that historic data, it would be difficult for us to make those predictions.
Absolutely.
So it's pointless having a supercar, but then putting in a desert, where it hasn't got the environment to perform at its max. And in today's world, it's easy for us to collect and store data with cloud computing and the advent of that. Processing powers, have exponentially increased, and it's a lot cheaper to do so as well.
Yeah.
So all those ingredients are there, but again, organizations need to prioritize that and invest in those areas for their organizations as well.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear about the project you've been working on, which is around financial resilience. If we can help people with financial resilience, whether it's individuals or organisations, I mean, it'd be really quite a powerful thing to do. So, how is that project going? How did it come about? What are you achieving?
It was a really interesting one, Harjit. So it's through the universities. So I kind of got an opportunity to be involved in a consultancy project with a large financial institution. At the moment, it's not been published, so I'm kind of NDA not to kind of mention the name, but it'll be out quite soon. But the project was and is really interesting because the whole idea and focus is on trying to understand people's financial resilience and how resilient are we as a population to external shocks. Now, we've seen many in recent times, be it from Brexit, the pandemic, through to some of the geopolitical challenges and supply chains being absolutely stretched. It has a knock-on effect on everyone's wallet, right? We're paying more for products and services and so on and so forth. So what we try to do is to try to understand actually how can we use artificial intelligence to predict how likely you are to fall from, let's just say in the traffic light system, from green to amber or from amber to red. And further to your point, and it's an interesting one, and I'm glad you said that, one of the findings, in fact, was that you're only one life event away from actually going from being in the green or thinking everything's fine, and you may have a good salary, you may have, good family support network, but one life event could be a loss of a job, could be a divorce, could be health issues, could put you out of that. Now that might sound quite straightforward and that's a bit obvious, isn't it, Kamran? But what we're trying to do is use AI to kind of predict that for you based on your current circumstances. So we collected data from 10,000 respondents, from across the UK, and then we devised a model where we're looking at things from financial security to financial literacy, life event, and there's two things that are really interesting. One, the financial shock, and then the financial absorbers. So what things could help you absorb a shock? And what this does is it gives you a score. So like we have credit rating. So credit ratings all in the past. So based on your historic spending, it gives you a score. What we've done with this model is to give you kind of a predictive score on what's likely to happen if a sudden change in your circumstances happen. Are you stable now, and how unstable? And that's really, really powerful because then it means it allows us to start planning and changing some of our spending habits.
And generally, that's a really powerful lesson because I've worked with so many organisations and they're still sort of steering the company looking in the rearview mirror rather than forecasting. And I think AI is giving, it's allowing people to use technology to do more than they were able to do before, because 15 years ago, you talk about life events, it's like black swan events, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was down to academics and geniuses like yourself, where
far from a genius.
We'd have to outsource. We'd have to outsource the thinking to you.
Yeah.
Now it's in the grasp of the average person, isn't it?
It is, and it is that it's being able to identify those low probability, high impact events, and often be it health, be it work, be it family, be it your support network. We always, as humans, we like to kind of give ourselves that security buffer and not think of what the worst case scenario might be. And then it's a really interesting way to get you to just start thinking and planning a little bit better.
Yeah.
And further to your point regarding savings. The model will actually give you an indication of how much savings you would actually need to absorb a major shock. Which again, it kind of would quantify that based on historic data, everyone else's inputs, and that I think is really, really valuable. Yeah, because it allows you to proactively respond rather than being reactive. And for me, that's the key thing, Harjit, is AI has allowed us to become more proactive and more personalized, as opposed to the systems of the past, which were essentially static and reactive.
Yes.
And that's how it should be used. Yet organizations may not necessarily still be using it in that way.
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong, let's use AI to try and fix it. No, it should be, let's try to mitigate this before it even happens.
That's amazing. So we've covered a lot of ground. How do people follow you? Do you post a lot on LinkedIn? How do they learn more about AI through the work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's funny. I was invited to a talk at Bradford City Football Club a few months ago, and the conversation was on social media platforms, and kind of the point I made was pick your poison and just be really good at it. You don't need to be excellent in everything. So with that in mind, my main platform is essentially LinkedIn, where I share a lot of the work that I do, me and my team, what we do as a collective. But dare I say, Harjit, I may be joining TikTok. and I say that because I've had so many of my friends say to me, actually, you would be really good on TikTok, and I've kind of been toying with the idea because you get good and bad everywhere, and so I've been toying with the idea. But I think, and you could be the judge of this. My thinking is, as academics, it's in fact our responsibility to make complex things sound easier and make it digestible, and that's kind of the angle I might go on. To explain what's happening in the AI tech space, what you should be doing as individuals, or even as organizations. So what are you saying, Harjit? Will you follow me on TikTok?
I'll follow you on TikTok.
You'll be my first.
Yeah, you might be the antidote to all the poisons on TikTok. To be honest.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see about that. Hopefully, I don't join the rest of them. But what's took me so long, Harjit, and this is the funny part, is to actually use a handle. I've just been going over about 10 different user handles in my head, and I really need to simplify it now and pick one. He's not going to give us away, is he?
No, well,
there you are.
It's all right.
So there we are, Harjit. So I don't have the handle yet, but I'm sure I'll post it soon when it comes.
Well, do, and I'll follow you. I don't do a lot on TikTok. I'm mainly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But
and we've kept in touch on LinkedIn, haven't we?
We have,
so that's I do find LinkedIn really, really useful, and that's what it's about. And it's about sharing and seeing what others are doing in that space.
Yeah, exactly. And then mainly for SMEs, but anybody that's listening wants to get more involved with AI. What are the one or two things they can start doing tomorrow to progress their journey?
So first of all, I would suggest is, don't have a scattergun approach when it comes to applications. So try to use one application across the organization, especially if it's a paid product, then allows you to, personalize, and it understands your organization's ethos. So
what are the
context.
Popular ones? Not that we're promoting any, but popular
Claude,
ones?
I think has become a bit more. It's come up the pecking order for me slightly.
The US government's banned Claude which one is it? 0.5 or something?
0.5, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just found Claude to be more useful for me when I'm using it for prompts and ideas, and a little bit more down the middle as opposed to beating me around the bush and sort of carry me through the process like, ChatGPT, for example. But going back to your original question, it's so pick an application, understand your data sources, and reach out to us. When I say us as universities, we do a lot of work with organizations, and often organizations don't realize there are many funding opportunities available. If there's an idea and you think AI could help overcome a particular problem, it might be drive efficiencies, there's always going to be some funding opportunity out there through the university or even through some of the work that we do. So for me is experiment and explore, but again, it goes back to what you're trying to achieve, and will these tools allow you to get there? Because again, objective, vision and strategy are paramount in all of this.
There you have it. You've heard it from Kamran, both academic but also a practical expert in the application and use of AI. I'm looking forward to 2026. I think it's going to be amazing. I think for organisations, there's so much opportunity. But like Kamran says, reach out to Kamran, follow him on LinkedIn. And I'm sure the University of Bradford will be happy to talk to people as well.
Thank you, Harjit, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers.
Yeah.